Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here, and in today's video I'm going to share what are, in my opinion, the top 10 best Yu-Gi-Oh! Ritual monsters. So ritual monsters have always kind of been the redheaded stepchild of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's really unfortunate because I think that it's a cool mechanic, but the problem always was, they were dead in your hand if you didn't have the ritual spell that you needed. If you didn't have the ritual monster and you had the spell, then it was dead. You had to lose so many cards, monsters, and stuff to summon them out, and at the end of the day, they usually just weren't worth it. But in recent years, Konami has actually made some really cool ritual monsters and archetypes, and with the advent of link summoning and all those new rules, some people think that ritual monsters could actually make a bit of a comeback, so I thought it fitting to make a list of the best 10. At number 10, we have Evagishki Gust Kraken. So Gishkis as an archetype in general is kind of just one of those underrated things. It never really made it onto the competitive map, but it was always a really fun water deck. And it's got its fair share of fun tricks with like Bahamut Shark and other things like that. But I think that its most infamous ritual monster among all of them was definitely Gust Kraken. Probably because it was part of a loop and ended up getting itself limited. But yeah, Evagishki Gust Kraken, when it's summoned, is able to just look at two cards in your opponent's hand and you pick one and it gets shuffled back in the deck. And the deck was able to effectively summon 3 of this card in a turn and just recycle and just get rid of your whole hand. And Konami generally doesn't like hand loops, so Number 9, we gotta give a shout out to Relinquished. I think the only old ritual monster that in some capacity is still decent-ish today. I only really say it because you can at least make, relinquished decks. I've seen lots of them. Oftentimes they aren't necessarily a relinquished focus. It's sometimes more of like a Mystic Piper, level 1 turbo type of deck. But Relinquish is fun in that at least summoning it's not very hard because it's level 1, so anything will do as a tribute. And it can steal opponents' monsters, so it does have a decent little control effect. It's not great, like I said, but one saving grace it does still have is that you can search it with pre-preparation of rights, so that's something. And even when it goes to the graveyard, once it's been properly ritual summoned, you can bring it back with your typical revival cards and then take stuff, so not a bad ritual monster. I felt like since most of the other cards in this list are new, it at least deserved a shout out. So number 9, Relinquished. Number 8 is Cyber Angel Vrash. So I had a pretty tough time picking which Cyber Angel to include because they're all pretty good and I thought about using Ben 10, but I felt like Cyber Angel Vrash, being the boss monster, kind of made more sense. She, when she's summoned, gets rid of all your opponent's extra deck summoned monsters and they take 1,000 damage for each, so that's kind of a big deal. If bring her in on a field full of like Synchros or Xyz, and that could be like 3,000 or 4,000 damage. And also if you do that effect, she gets an extra attack and she's 3k attack, so pretty good. And then if a card on the field would be destroyed, you can actually shuffle a ritual monster from your grave into the deck to negate the activation of whatever would destroy it. So really, all in all, not a bad boss monster. Kind of difficult to summon. It is level 10. Although in the Cyber Angel deck, that's not always too hard. Level 4 monsters are everywhere, and things like Ben 10 and other stuff, they kind of pay for themselves when they get tributed. So it's all in all not an awful monster. I don't think it deserved much higher on the list than this, but Vrash is definitely just a strong card. I've been using Cyber Angels, so I like her at least. Check out my deck profile of that. I'll be sure to try to link that. So yeah, she gets number 8. Card number 7 is Saphira, Queen of Dragons. So it's a card that works really well in Cyber Angels, really well in Herald of Perfection decks. It is just sort of a generic good light ritual monster. The turn it was summoned, or the turn when a light monster got sent from the hand or deck to the grave, if I'm remembering correctly, you get to use one of 3 different effects in the end phase. You can either draw 2 and pitch 1, which is, kind of a mini Graceful Charity. You can discard a card from your opponent's hand, which is always nice. Or you can get a light monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So that could be, an Honest, Christia, any given fairy. If you're running Herald of Perfection, that's just more tribute fodder. There's not a lot more to say about the card other than the fact that it's just a good complementary card for the decks I mentioned before, but I definitely felt like it's a worthwhile control card, a fun just thing to have out in the field with your other monsters. So number 7 is Saphira. Card number 6 is Authorized Gravity Dragon. Probably the least, popular of all the different Authorized summoning mechanic dragons, but it's actually not bad. When it's ritual summoned, you bounce all your opponent's spells and traps back to the hand, and they can't use anything in response to that, so that's actually really cool. And then after that, whenever your opponent wants to activate anything, they have to pay 500 life points to do so. So this thing can be pretty oppressive. I mean, in addition to having, you know, the whole like strong 2800 stats and stuff, it's just it's like Red Eye's Flare Metal Dragon sort of, or similar to that. And when you get it out, though that's sort of tough, not really in an Odd Eyes deck. I mean, you know, you have the Tribute fodder and then like Pendulum monsters, if they, you know, go from the field, will go to the extra deck so they can be reusable. Means that like getting this out isn't the toughest thing in the world. It's just a little less practical, but still, you know, I like the whole, you know, your opponent can't respond to things, and then once all the stuff's back in their hand, if they want to use it again, they're gonna have to pay. Still, it's, you know, I wish it had maybe some built-in protection so that way it wasn't so easy to get rid of it. And mitigate the 500 life point cost. But if you can keep it on the field and you can keep it protected, not a bad card. Number 5 is Prediction Princess Territory. So Prediction Princesses as a deck, as an archetype, they're not great. They, you know, a lot of people don't really like care too much about the deck, but the Prediction Princess Territory herself is actually pretty decent. She's level 9, so she can be a little bit tough to summon, but her effect is quite good. During the end phase, you're able to summon a flip monster from your hand or graveyard, and you can summon it in face down defense position, which is great. It's a free plus at the end of every turn. And then it also has a Book of Moon-esque effect where you can either flip a face down monster face up or a face up monster face down once per turn during either player's turn. So it can be a really strong disruption effect, and she actually sees pretty decent use in things like Shaddolls, because, you know, Shaddolls are all flip monsters, so you can get them back and you can use their effects, you know, a little bit more aggressively with her. And a deck that she was previously used in, not as much now, is actually Subterrors, because, you know, the Subterror monsters are also flip effect monsters. So being able to summon, you know, a free Stalagmo, a free, you know, Umastrix or something like that from the grave is really strong too. And because their monsters are so high level, it's actually pretty good for summoning her. You know, all in all, the archetype's not great, but she's actually a good control monster. If you can find other uses for her, it's cool. I've seen her also used with, like, you know, the Pot of the Forbidden, things like that. So not a bad card, give it a look. Number 4, Revenge Red Slayer, a new card that actually just released in Code of the Duelist. Alone, this card is nothing particularly special. It has 2400 attack, and when it attacks, you can banish a zombie from your grave and have it gain 300 attack. The attack gain's permanent, which is, you know, cool, but 300 attack's not really a big deal. So what's, you know, why does anyone care about this card? Because when you do ritual summon it, if you ritual summon it using either Revenge Red Hound Horde or Revenge Red Revenants, you get some really strong effects. Revenants lets you banish a special summon monster once per turn during either player's turn, and Hound Horde lets you banish a spell or trap by the same sort of parameters. If you can somehow ritual summon this guy with both of those effects, he is actually like a 50 million times more disruptive Dryden. Being able to banish special summon monsters on the spot, like chainably, same with spells and traps, and this is like banish, not even destroy, is extremely powerful, extremely oppressive. Alec has built this deck. Check out his Vendred deck profile, actually. I'll link it. But yeah, it's this deck, I mean, this card at least, can get really strong. And then when he does die, you actually get to search another copy of your ritual spell to your hand and then send another Vendred monster from your deck to the grave. So it's kind of cool, a little bit of setup there. And the thing is, this card might get even better in the future when Vendreds get more support. Number 3 is Herald of Perfection, a card that has been out for a really long time. It's actually gotten a sort of ultimate form, Herald of Ultimateness, but I decided to include Herald of Perfection because it's a little bit easier to summon. This thing's annoying. Nobody really likes facing this card. For a long time, I think in 2010, it was actually kind of the anti-meta deck of the time, because, you know, you'd get this thing out in defense, has 2800 defense, so it's really hard to swing over, and you can discard fairies to negate stuff, spells, traps, monster effects, multiple times in the same chain. It can be really tough to deal with, and the deck would use things like Honest, things like Fairy Cheer Girl, things like Archlord Christia to just completely lock your opponent out of things. And this is kind of in a pre-kaiju time. And even today, this card's not awful. There are a lot more ways around it though. You know, your opponent can usually summon something really large and deal with it that way. There's the obvious kaiju threat. But still, I think that Herald of Perfection deserved a spot on this list for being such a dominant, well-known ritual monster. Even its card that summons it, Dawn of the Herald, gets back a fairy that you use, so it kind of fuels its effect. It works really well with like Saphira, like I said earlier, Cyber Angels, all those cards. And you know, if you want to have a lot of fun, there's always Herald of Ultimateness too. Card number 2 is Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. This card is crazy. it's like, it kind of reminds me of like the big stupid jock, where, you know, maybe not the smartest guy around, but damn it, when he hits hard. Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon has 4,000 attack, and it does double piercing damage. So if it attacks something small, I mean, you might be taking like anywhere from 4,000 to, you know, 6,000, 7,000 damage. Not only that, it can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects. And it's not that hard to summon. It's really easy to search it out. You got, you know, Melody of Awakening Dragon, can grab it super easy. It's level 8, which I always thought it would maybe be a higher level. So any Blue Eyes card or whatever will fill the tribute. And I mean, you know, if your opponent's not prepared when this card drops, it's just kind of a wrap. I mean, you know, you can't really Dark Hole Raigeki it, you know, Mirror Force it, you can't target it, and it only needs to resolve like maybe 2 attacks and you're probably dead. It's got, you know, the weaknesses of the Blue Eyes deck. You know, the card itself, or the deck it's kind of working in, can be a little bit bricky, can get kaiju'd, blah, blah. But I think that the ability to really steal games with this card is almost unparalleled, so it definitely gets a high spot on this list. And I think it's actually how Blue Eyes decks are probably going to be competing in Link format. And card number 1, drum roll please, Necroz. Just Necroz. I couldn't pick a Necroz monster to include. I mean, I kind of thought about Unicorn, I kind of thought about Trishula, I kind of thought about just the Necroz archetype. It really was the kind of epitome of like, make rituals great again. Not that there was much of it again, but yeah, Necroz, just the whole archetype, the whole deck, we know how good this thing was. It really solved all the problems that ritual decks had had in the past with consistency and, you know, being dead in the hand and all that stuff. I mean, all of the Necroz cards, Valk and you know, just all of them, they're all great cards. They all have hand trap effects. The ritual spells are easy to search. They're really powerful when they do get out. You know, Trishula banishing a card from the hand, deck, and grave. Unicorn negating all your extra deck monsters' effects. Brio bouncing them. I mean, you know, just, it's Necroz. Enough said, right? So, that is my list of the top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Ritual monsters. I think this was actually a pretty good list. I mean, I'm sure there were a few that maybe I forgot about or excluded, maybe your favorite ones. So let me know, you know, how do you feel about the list? What would your top 10s be? Let me know down in the comments. I will be responding as per usual. And yeah, so thumbs up if you like the video, subs if you love the video. Be sure to hit the notification button, the bell, so that way you can be in the notification squad per se, and see all the new videos as soon as they drop. That's gonna be it. I hope you guys liked it. I'll see you in the next one.